Stop. Listen. Pay attention. Chosen one. This is not background noise, and it is not a message you stumble into by chance. It arrives because something in you is already alert, even if you feel tired. You have been carrying a quiet strain that does not announce itself loudly. Fatigue that sleep does not fully resolve. Pressure without a single obvious source. Moments of isolation where conversation feels distant, even when people are present. Confusion that comes and goes, not chaotic, but persistent enough to make you pause. None of this is dramatic. It is steady, and it has been asking for your attention. There is urgency here, but not panic. Urgency does not always shout. Sometimes it speaks in the subtle sense that something important has been happening while you kept functioning. You continued your responsibilities. You kept showing up. You adapted. And yet beneath the surface you noticed the weight. You noticed the drag on your energy. You noticed how effort increased while outcomes stayed delayed. This message is intentional. It is not a general address meant to motivate a crowd. It is personal in the most precise way. It is here to give clarity, not overwhelm. Explanation, not exposure. You do not need every detail right now. You need orientation. What you have felt is real. It did not come from weakness or from failure to cope. You were not imagining it, and you were not falling behind. There has been a real-life tension pressing on you, one that did not require you to break in order to be effective. You stayed functional. You stayed composed enough to keep moving. That matters. You may have questioned yourself quietly, wondered why ordinary tasks felt heavier, noticed that rest helped but did not completely reset you, felt moments of emotional distance without a clear emotional cause. These are not signs that something is wrong with you. They are signs that something has been occurring around you and within you, without demanding your conscious participation. This is where clarity begins. Not with labels or conclusions, but with recognition. You are here because your system endured something without collapsing, because you remained coherent when pressure tried to fragment your focus, because you sensed that the experience needed interpretation, not dismissal. Stay with this. Do not rush to solve it. The explanation will come in layers, each one grounded and usable. For now, understand this single truth. This message found you because you were steady enough to receive it. This message narrows now. It does not widen. It is not meant to include everyone who feels tired, pressured, or uncertain. Many people experience stress. Many feel overwhelmed. That is not what this is addressing. This is for you. You know this because the description did not feel theoretical. It mapped onto your own recent experience with unsettling accuracy. Not emotionally exaggerated, not symbolic, practical, familiar, recognizable in the body, in the pace of your thoughts, in the way you have been moving through days without fully naming what you were carrying. You are the chosen one. This message is speaking to, not as a title to inflate you, but as an identifier. A designation of function. It means that what occurred did not simply happen near you. It involved you directly. Your inner structure was part of the equation. What matters here is not what you consciously did. It is what you did not have to do. You did not have to mobilize extreme effort. You did not have to force resilience. You did not have to perform strength for anyone, including yourself. And yet you remained intact. There is a difference between struggle and resistance. Struggle is loud. It consumes attention. Resistance can be quiet. It can exist as a baseline. What you experienced was not a dramatic internal fight. It was a sustained stability that did not require constant monitoring. You kept functioning even while something attempted to destabilize your rhythm. This is why the experience felt confusing. Your mind looked for a problem to solve, but there was no obvious crisis. Your emotions looked for a clear cause, but nothing dramatic presented itself. Instead, there was a low-grade pressure met by an automatic steadiness. That steadiness did not announce itself. It simply held. That is not common. Most people only realize their capacity when they are forced into visible reaction. You did not react. You adapted. You adjusted internally without making it a story. That tells you something important about who this message is for. You are not being named because you endured pain. You are being identified because you endured pressure without disintegration. Because something tested your coherence and your system responded by staying aligned rather than defensive. This is not about ego. It is about accuracy. Mislabeling this experience as ordinary stress would cause you to miss the signal entirely. Over-dramatizing it would distort it. The truth sits in the middle, calm and precise. This message is for you because your stability was not accidental. It was already there operating beneath your awareness. There is one symptom you recognized immediately, even if you did not name it out loud. A persistent drain. Not exhaustion in the dramatic sense, not collapse, but a subtle reduction in available energy. You noticed it in how long it took to reset after rest, in how tasks required a little more intention than before, in the way your attention occasionally slipped not into distraction, but into a quiet inward pull. You may have judged this symptom, questioned your discipline, wondered if you were losing momentum or focus. You may have tried to correct it with effort, with structure, with rest, and found that while those helped, they did not fully explain what was happening. This is where the reframe matters. What you experienced was not a flaw. It was a signal. A signal that pressure was present without demanding overt reaction. When pressure does not break you, it often reveals itself through efficiency changes rather than visible distress. Your system did not panic. It compensated. And compensation uses energy. This is important. You were not depleted because you were failing. You were allocating resources to maintain coherence. That allocation happened automatically. You did not consciously decide to protect your focus, your emotional balance, or your capacity to function. Your inner structure did that for you. That is why the symptom felt confusing. You felt the cost without seeing the threat. You felt the drain without a clear story to attach to it. The mind prefers visible causes. When it cannot find one, it turns inward and begins to self-question. That is not intuition. That is a misinterpretation born from incomplete information. The physical and emotional sensations you noticed were not warnings of collapse. They were indicators of transition. When a system is exposed to sustained pressure while remaining stable, it enters a regulatory mode. Muscles stay engaged longer. Attention stays anchored. Emotional responses stay moderated. All of this requires subtle effort, even when it feels calm on the surface. You may have noticed moments where your body asked for stillness without fatigue. Moments where silence felt necessary. Moments where you pulled back socially not from disinterest, but from a need to conserve clarity. These are not avoidance behaviors. They are adaptive responses. Remove self-judgment here. Nothing about this points to weakness. In fact, the absence of dramatic symptoms is part of the evidence. Many people only recognize pressure when it overwhelms them. You recognized it through quiet signals because your system did not allow it to escalate. This reframing changes everything. Instead of asking what is wrong with you, the better question becomes what required regulation. Instead of trying to fix the symptom, you can understand its purpose. It was not trying to stop you. It was keeping you intact. Hold this understanding gently. You do not need to act on it yet. You only need to let the confusion dissolve. What you felt was meaningful, and it was preparing you for a deeper explanation. What you were responding to did not announce itself. There was no single event, no clear confrontation, no moment you could point to and say, "This is when it started." That is because the pressure was not designed to be obvious. It was subtle, distributed, and timed. This kind of pressure works through accumulation. Small interruptions, minor delays, a slight increase in cognitive load, a gentle but persistent attempt to pull your attention off its natural rhythm. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger alarm, just enough to test stability. This was not random. The timing matters. This occurred recently, not as a distant chapter, but within a period where you were already moving forward internally. You were not stagnant. You were not lost. You were adjusting, refining, or clarifying something in your life, even if you had not fully articulated it yet. Pressure often appears at moments of internal alignment, not confusion. The structure of what you felt points to coordination rather than coincidence. The drain was consistent. The distractions were patterned. The sense of delay followed specific efforts, not all efforts equally. And yet, despite this, you remained functional. You continued to make decisions. You maintained composure. You did not spiral. This is the part that matters most. You did not freeze. You did not fragment. You did not abandon yourself or your responsibilities. Your outer life may have slowed slightly, but it did not collapse. That tells you the pressure did not achieve its intended effect. There is no need for dramatic language here, no imagery of conflict. The reality is simpler and more grounded. Something applied force. Your system absorbed it. That absorption required regulation, not reaction. Invisible pressure often reveals itself by what does not happen. You did not become erratic. You did not lose your sense of direction. You did not disconnect from your values or your capacity to reason. Many people do under far less strain. You did not. This is why the experience deserves acknowledgement rather than dismissal. Ignoring it would cause you to miss an important data point about your own resilience. Overinterpreting it would distort its meaning. The truth sits in recognition. You were confronted quietly, not with fear, but with friction, not with chaos, but with drag. And the fact that you stayed operational is not incidental. It is evidence. You do not need to label the source yet. Understanding the effect is enough for now. The pressure was real, the response was stable, and the outcome is already clear. You outlasted it without needing to know you were doing so. To understand what you endured, it helps to slow the experience down and look at its components. Not as a story, but as a series of pressure points, each one subtle, each one familiar. None of them overwhelming on their own. Together they formed a sustained test of internal regulation. The first pressure point was doubt. Not loud doubt. Not the kind that questions your worth or direction outright. This was quieter. It appeared as second-guessing after decisions were already made. A soft erosion of certainty. You did not abandon your choices, but you felt the need to revisit them more often than usual. This kind of doubt does not try to stop you. It tries to slow you by increasing cognitive load. You noticed it, but you did not let it derail you. You kept moving while allowing uncertainty to exist without giving it authority. The second pressure point was fear, but again, not fear with a clear object. It was ambient, a background sense that something could go wrong without specifying what. This type of fear often pushes people into hypervigilance or avoidance. You did neither. You remained aware without becoming reactive. You did not rush to control outcomes that were not yet defined. That restraint is not passive. It is regulated strength. The third pressure point was energy drain. This one was the most tangible. Your body signaled that more was being asked of it than usual. Not enough to shut you down, but enough to require pacing. You adjusted without dramatizing it. You did not collapse into exhaustion, nor did you override your limits recklessly. You found a middle ground. That ability to modulate effort in real time is a marker of internal coherence. The fourth pressure point was isolation. Not social abandonment, but a subtle sense of being alone inside the experience. Conversations felt less resonant. Explanations felt unnecessary or insufficient. You may have chosen silence more often, not because you were withdrawing, but because you did not need external validation to stay steady. Many people misinterpret this sensation and assume something is wrong with their relationships. You did not. You allowed the space without filling it impulsively. The fifth pressure point was delay. Efforts did not immediately translate into results. Progress felt slowed, not blocked. This is often where frustration peaks. Delay can trigger self-blame or urgency. You experienced neither in excess. You noticed the lag-adjusted expectations and continued. You did not abandon momentum simply because feedback was not instant. What matters is not that these pressures existed. Pressure is common. What matters is how your system responded. You did not fight these experiences. You did not dramatize them. You did not internalize them as personal failure. You regulated. Internal regulation looks unremarkable from the outside. It is not heroic. It is not loud. It shows up as steadiness, as the ability to hold multiple sensations without needing to resolve them immediately, as the capacity to remain present even when conditions are imperfect. You stayed stable through doubt by not demanding absolute certainty. You stayed stable through fear by not inventing threats. You stayed stable through energy drain by pacing instead of pushing. You stayed stable through isolation by trusting your own orientation. You stayed stable through delay by not equating time with defeat. This is not accidental behavior. It reflects an inner structure that does not collapse under ambiguity. Many people require clarity before they can function. You functioned while clarity was forming. This section matters because it grounds the experience in reality. No metaphors are needed. No exaggeration helps here. These are ordinary human pressures that become extraordinary only when someone remains regulated through all of them simultaneously. You did not neutralize the pressure by force. You absorbed it through coherence. That is why when the pressure passed, there was no dramatic release. Just a quiet sense that something had shifted. You did not break because you were not built to fragment. Now the perspective shifts. Not forward yet, but inward. This is the moment where experience becomes understanding. Where what you lived through is no longer just something you endured, but something you can accurately evaluate. Look back at the period in question, not emotionally, analytically. When you do, a pattern becomes clear. The pressure did not escalate over time. It peaked and then receded. It did not compound into chaos. It resolved without requiring intervention. That alone rules out coincidence. If this had been simple fatigue rest, would have fully reset you. It did not. If this had been indecision clarity, would have eliminated it. It did not. If this had been emotional overload expression, would have discharged it. It did not. What resolved it was continuity. You kept moving in alignment with yourself. You did not abandon your internal logic. You did not betray your own pacing. You did not fracture your priorities to relieve discomfort. And because of that, the pressure lost leverage. This is where false explanations fall apart. Luck did not carry you through this. Timing did not randomly improve. External circumstances may have shifted slightly, but they did not account for the internal steadiness you maintained while those circumstances were unresolved. What carried you through was coherence. Coherence is the ability to stay internally consistent under strain. Thoughts, emotions, body signals, and values remain in communication with each other. None of them take over. None of them get suppressed to the point of backlash. That is not accidental. That is developed. You may not have recognized this as it was happening. Most people do not. Coherence does not feel impressive while it is operating. It feels ordinary. It feels like simply getting through the day. That is why many underestimate it. But when you review the facts, the confirmation becomes unavoidable. You were exposed to sustained pressure. You did not destabilize. You did not compensate through numbing or excess control. You did not outsource your balance to distractions. You stayed with yourself. That is the difference. Many explanations attempt to reduce experiences like this to randomness, because randomness is easier than responsibility. If it was random, nothing is required of you, but this was not random. It was a demonstration of an internal capacity already in place. This realization does not require celebration. It requires accuracy. You now know something concrete about yourself. You can trust your ability to remain intact when conditions are unclear. You can trust that your system does not panic under invisible strain. This is confirmation, not escalation. A clear assessment of what already occurred. And once something is understood accurately, it no longer has power to confuse you. You are not guessing anymore. You are recognizing. To understand the significance of what you demonstrated, it helps to compare it to what is common, not to elevate you, but to place the experience in context. Most people do not fail because pressure is extreme. They falter because pressure is sustained and unclear. Under far less strain than what you carried, many people lose presence. They become reactive. They over-explain themselves. They chase reassurance. They fragment their attention trying to relieve discomfort. None of this is a moral failure. It is a typical human response to ambiguity. You did not do that. You remained present even when there was nothing obvious to respond to. You did not rush to name the experience just to feel in control. You tolerated not knowing without becoming restless. That alone sets this experience apart. Many people require visible validation to stay steady. Progress, feedback, affirmation. When those are delayed, anxiety fills the gap. You allowed the gap to exist. You did not confuse absence of feedback with absence of movement. This is not superiority, it is rarity. Most systems are designed to react. Few are structured to regulate. Regulation means staying online aware and functional without needing resolution first. It means not collapsing inward or projecting outward. It means maintaining coherence when the environment is quiet but heavy. You did that. What makes this uncommon is not intensity, but duration. Anyone can remain calm for a moment. Few can remain steady over time without reassurance. You did not just survive a spike. You carried yourself through a stretch. And importantly, you did not make an identity out of it. You did not narrate yourself as heroic. You did not seek recognition. You simply continued. That restraint matters. Rarity here does not mean better. It means less frequent. It means your internal structure handled a condition that often destabilizes others. That information is useful, not flattering. Understanding this does not separate you from people. It clarifies how you move among them. You now know that your baseline for stability is higher than average. Not because you are exceptional, but because you are integrated. This awareness should not inflate you. It should orient you. It explains why some environments feel noisy to you, why some reactions feel unnecessary, why you can remain composed when others escalate. This is not a call to distance yourself. It is a call to understand yourself accurately. You are rare in this way, and rarity, when understood correctly, carries responsibility, not ego. Part 8. Identity Clarification. Here is the distinction that matters most, and it must be made carefully. What you demonstrated was not a surge of strength that turned on under pressure. It was not an activation. It was not a temporary elevation. It was baseline. This is important because many people misunderstand their own resilience. They believe they rise only when challenged. In reality, what rises is usually compensation. What you exhibited required no compensation. It was already there. Your stability did not come from effort in the moment. It came from prior integration, from patterns already established, from an internal structure that knows how to hold tension without demanding immediate release. That kind of structure is built slowly, through lived experience, through reflection, through restraint, through learning when not to react. This is why the pressure did not overwhelm you. You did not need to become someone else to meet it. You remained yourself. There is no need to invoke extraordinary explanations here. The explanation is internal and practical. Your nervous system knows how to regulate. Your mind knows how to stay coherent under uncertainty. Your emotional field does not flood when information is incomplete. These are signs of maturity, not mysticism. The identity this points to is simple and grounded. You are someone whose inner systems are aligned. Thought, emotion, and action are in communication. None of them dominate. None of them shut down. That alignment is what held. This is also why you may have struggled to describe the experience to others. It did not feel dramatic enough to explain yet. It was too specific to dismiss. Language tends to favor extremes. What you lived in was balance under strain, and that is harder to articulate. Lock this identity gently, not as a label to perform, but as a reference point. You can trust your baseline. You do not need chaos to access clarity. You do not need urgency to function. You do not need fear to mobilize. This understanding should simplify you, not complicate you. It means you can stop scanning yourself for hidden flaws. It means you can stop questioning your steadiness just because pressure was present. You are not someone who survives by activation. You are someone who remains by structure. That is who you are. Now the focus turns from understanding to integration. Not to change who you are, but to let what you have realized settle into daily life without tension. This is not a call to vigilance. It is an invitation to balance. First, rest without justification. You do not need to earn recovery by exhaustion. Rest is not a response to weakness. It is maintenance for coherence. Allow pauses that are deliberate, not reactive. Stillness will feel natural again when you stop treating it as a repair tool. Second, discernment over urgency. Not every signal requires action. You have already proven that you can remain functional without immediate resolution. Trust that. Let information arrive fully before responding. This does not slow you down. It keeps you aligned. Third, boundaries without explanation. You may feel less inclined to engage in conversations or environments that drain clarity. That is not withdrawal. It is calibration. You do not owe everyone access to your attention. Protecting your focus preserves your steadiness. Fourth, patience without passivity. Delay does not mean stagnation. You have seen that progress can continue internally even when external confirmation lags. Stay engaged, but do not chase outcomes. Let timing work with you instead of against you. Fifth, focus without fixation. Choose what matters and stay with it, but release the need to control every variable. You function best when attention is directed, not tense. Precision comes from calm presence, not pressure. Finally, allow emotional closure. You do not need to analyze the experience endlessly. Understanding has already done its work. Let the body register safety again. Let the nervous system stand down. You are not on alert anymore. Integration is quiet. It does not announce itself. It shows up as ease returning to familiar actions, as breath deepening without effort, as decisions feeling lighter, not because they matter less, but because you trust yourself more. Carry this forward gently. Nothing is required of you beyond what you are already doing well. You do not need to watch for threats. You do not need to prepare for impact. You have already demonstrated what happens when pressure appears. You remain. That is enough. You can exhale now. Nothing is chasing you. Nothing is waiting to test you again. What needed to be revealed has already been revealed, and what needed to pass has already passed. You do not need to hold this experience tightly. You do not need to protect it or prove it. Its value is already integrated. You understand something essential about yourself now, not as an idea, but as lived evidence. You know how you respond when conditions are unclear. You know that your steadiness does not depend on ease. You know that pressure does not automatically destabilize you. Let that knowledge settle without ceremony. The core realization is simple. You remained coherent under invisible strain. You did not fracture. You did not lose yourself. You did not need to fight. That tells you everything you need to know about your foundation. Carry these affirmations with you quietly. You are steady without forcing it. You are clear without rushing. You are intact without explanation. Say them only if they feel true. They do not need repetition to work. If this message resonated in a specific way, mark it. Not for me, but for yourself. In the comments, write 777 or write I remember. That is not a ritual. It is a signal of recognition, a way of acknowledging that something landed where it needed to. If you want to stay connected to messages like this, subscribe to the channel. Not out of urgency, out of alignment. Each video builds on the last, not by repeating ideas, but by deepening understanding. You will know when the next one is for you. You do not need to share your story unless you want to. You do not need to explain what this meant to you. Understanding does not require disclosure. Presence is enough. This message ends the way it began. Calm, certain, grounded. You were not overwhelmed because you are not built to be. You were not defeated because nothing here overcame you. You outlasted what was invisible, and you did it without trying. That is not something to announce. It is something to trust.